everyone, and welcome to Heart and Hand, the Rangers podcast. My name is David Edgar, and as always, I am your host. And I'm joined this week by two stellar guests from the galaxy of Heart and Hand star contributors. First of all, a welcome return for Andy McGowan.
Hello, David. Thanks for having me back on. Does that mean I'm a space cadet on that kind of galactic theme?
Well, I don't think galactic's the word, but
galactic.
But yeah.
It's like saying galactic. I was getting mixed up.
Yeah, inventing words is usually my other guest thing. It's Cammy Bell.
I don't know why I'm getting heat thrown at me when that guy obviously has never watched Star Trek or Star Wars in his life. But here we are.
What a burn.
Yeah, Andy, my fellow stuck in Manchester traveller last week, we eventually did get back on Sunday. And a fun trip, but Saturday, yeah, sorry, because you were up in Dundee on the Sunday. Right, lads, nice for once to come on here after an away game and talk positively about, first of all, 3 points, some great goals, actually, and some good performances after the opening half an hour. But let's just get straight to it. Refereeing. The game is dying. It's done. Rangers have a free kick with a few seconds to go. There's a very minor spat involving two players. Cammy, you're a qualified ref, sensible referee, and says you bring the two of them over and go, lads, there's seconds to go. It's done. Wrap that. Rangers hit the free kick and the game's done. No controversy. Instead, though, Nick Walsh decides he's seen Mohamed Diamande slap the Dundee United player. VAR takes a look at it along with the rest of the nation and goes, no, he didn't, and even if he did, there was no force in it whatsoever. Could you go and have a look at this? He goes and have a look at it and he doubles down. Your thoughts, please?
I think you've been a bit kind to him by saying the rest of the nation. I think it's been going a bit further afield than that from all of the fallout that I've seen and heard so far today. Nick Walsh is a national embarrassment. I don't really know as to how much more I can confine it to that, because as you rightly say, the game is absolutely done and dusted. I totally accept the Dundee United were probably frustrated they were chapping in the door to be able to try and get an equaliser. The third goal goes in, and then, all of a sudden you went from a winning position to very much a losing one. And I understand the frustration shown by the Dundee United players, Kevin Holt in particular, who, by the way, is already on a booking.
Should have been off, correct, yep.
There's far more. If Nick Walsh is going to cite the fact that it's, physical or aggressive behaviour as part of the laws of the game, then I would say the initial shove by Kevin Holt, there's a follow-up shove as well on Raskan, constitute more than what he has deemed Mohamed Diamande has done to merit his sending off. Now, that is not me for one single minute saying that the minute you walk over and shove a player, it's an instant red card. Of course it's not. What Nick Walsh had the opportunity to do, as you allude to, David, is just simply take the players to one side. And I would, by the way, phrase that in such a way. I've done it before wherever I've had to get players to one side after a particularly nasty challenge and say, look, I know you're angry. That tackle was born out of anger. I don't think you meant it, so therefore it's not a red, but it's going to be a booking. Calm it down. That's it. That's how you diffuse the whole situation. And that's in the midst of a competitive game, not the last 30 seconds, as it turned out to be. It's complete mismanagement of the game and the players. And what's worse is having been given the benefit of VAR, and as much as you can go back and forth in VAR, and we've discussed it since its introduction in Scottish football, this is why it's there. You have to have the humility to come back and say, right, I got that wrong. I may have been slightly unsighted, which I actually believe Nick Walsh was. I can see it from different angles. I can see that it's not the offence that I thought it was. Therefore, I can de-escalate it. I can give it a yellow. Game's done and dusted. But he doesn't have that humility. It's a farce. I'm glad that it's been called out on many an impartial media forum that it's a farce. And I think now Willie Collins get questions to answer. However, Rangers need to ask the questions.
Yeah, I've got the rule here. Under Law 12 of IFAB's rule, it says, in addition, a player who, when not challenging for the ball, deliberately strikes an opponent or any other person on the head or face with a hand or arm is guilty of violent conduct unless the force used was negligible. That's a new thing. So a tap on the face isn't a red card anymore. That's something that was introduced a few years back. Now, given that from one angle it looks as though he hasn't actually touched the Dundee United player, that there's no reaction from the Dundee United player, then of course there's no way to say that the force was anything other than negligible. So it's not a red card. It really is that simple, which is why VAR have asked him to go and have a look at it. He said no, the force is negligible. And this is a curse of Scottish refereeing. Now, first of all, when referees, we all have a problem with, right? And for some people, it's just incompetence. For some, it's cheating. For me, it's incompetence to do the red card, but people make mistakes. But to go and have a look at it is cheating. And I'm not saying that it's, he's desperate to cheat Rangers. What I'm saying is if his arrogance, as Cammy says, means that he cannot back down and see he's made a mistake, then he's deliberately given a wrong decision to cover his own arse, which only makes it worse, by the way. It's always learn from Watergate. It's always the cover-up that gets you. But there's just no way. This is just not a justifiable red card. The force is not negligible. The force is negligible. He's not endangering an opponent, anything like that. And again, the argument that you don't want the rules applied just because it's late in the game, and that's fair enough. But we see at Ibrox all the time when Rangers are winning, maybe 4-0 up with 10 minutes to go, one of their players on a yellow will make a silly tackle and the ref will just warn them and say, look, come on, the game's done. You see it all the time and nobody complains about it. And also, Scottish referees will not book someone in the opening 10 minutes. We know this. You get a free one in the opening 10 minutes. So don't tell me it doesn't happen anyway. Your thoughts, please.
I thought when you said the game was dying, I thought you were talking about Scottish football because how long have I been on Heart and Hand? And it feels like, I think maybe my first show, and ever since I've been talking about Scottish refereeing and the standards and what we constitute as acceptable and unacceptable, and it's getting worse. The only saving grace yesterday was that happened after the game was done. If you can imagine that happening when it was 1-1 or 2-1, for example, then we'd have probably lost points again, and Cologne would have been quite right to be super angry. I don't want to hate referees, right? I don't know if sympathy is a word, but I go to the junior football. I watch the referees there. I see them coming through, and then a couple of years later, I see them in the top flight, and part of me is like, well done. It's not an easy thing. It's like a footballer. We don't see the sacrifices that are made to get to that level, right? But what we've got here is a situation where Nick Walsh, actually, when you see where he was standing, and you see the wee flick out, and you see the reaction for Holt, I can kind of get why he thought there was a slap. But you then see the VAR replays, and you say, well, at best, there's a swing, and what's probably more likely is that in the motion of being shoved backwards, he may have been trying to shove back or anything. You just cannot tell. But the bottom line is there's no contact, and if there was, it doesn't meet that negligible threshold. So it's not a red card. It's a farce, right? But the bigger picture here is that you've got numerous debacles in this season only, right? Let's not go back last season or the season before because we could. There's numerous debacles, and it's not just about Rangers. So if somebody's listening in because it's a free-to-air podcast and thinking, oh, this is a Rangers gripe, you just need to go around all the clubs in Scotland to hear that every single one of them at some point or another is absolutely exasperated, and I'm talking about the managers here, exasperated with the standard and the decisions that are being made by Scottish referees. There's a bigger problem for me personally, in that as I've always spoken about the physicality of Scottish football, and I think that is the fundamental point one foundation block of why we do not progress as a football nation in so many regards. We just accept so much of what goes on in terms of physicality. Ali Bain on Twitter just made a great point about the amount of blocking that was going on yesterday, but in Scottish football in general. It's like the NFL sometimes. Once you open your eyes to it, you see it. There's things like that go on. You spoke there about the free pass in the first 10 minutes. Diamande gets smashed.
Yep.
Because I watched that game last night, and within 2 minutes, and it was in real time. And it was
a deliberate tactic because they ought comes at it. So it's it
was a clear yellow.
Yeah, exactly.
Clear yellow, and then.
I think so. Just to cut into that, Andy, as well, because that was a point exactly I was going to make as well. Was I could see it when I was at the game yesterday, where I could see the fouls. Obviously, I'm sure they were coming across if anyone was watching on TV, But the problem for me was when Diomande was trying to explain that to the referee, he literally didn't even give him the time of day. And that's part of the issue. Now, I don't believe that this has I genuinely don't believe this has led to Diomande being sent off, because he's totally turned the game around. I think if you guys remember, I said to you at the time, I was like, Diomande's getting really frustrated here, and I think he's going to lose a rag in a wee bit. But to his credit, he calmed down. But none of that was because of Nick Walsh. Diomande made the decision to say, I'm just not going to get anything here. I'm not going to react. I'm not going to do anything. But Walsh wouldn't give him the single time of day. And that within itself is terrible. It's a terrible way to manage the game. Sorry, Andy.
No, it's all right. But it sets the tone, and you see it time and again. And there was a number of times they'd obviously said, right, we need to be in and about them all round the park, but particularly middle of the park with Diomande and Raskin. And later on in the first half, again, he got a badging in the knee, which he got up for. No recall. I think maybe the guy got booked. Can't remember. But anyway, it was targeted. Listen, on a footballing point, I was delighted to see Diomande react in the correct way, which was to take out his aggression in his play, scoring a goal, winning the ball back, and all the rest of it. But that is a fundamental point for me, that the standard of Scottish refereeing allows a level of physicality, which, by the way, makes it harder to referee. This is a key point. It makes, if you've got a more physical game by 10%, 15%, 20%, it means that there's going to be more flashpoints, there's going to be more contentious decisions to be made. It makes it a harder game for our referees to referee. And I think that Column and SFA need to open their eyes to this, and there needs to be a World Cup 94 moment in Scotland where all of a sudden that tackle that was okay yesterday is not okay today, and move us forward. It's what I think it's what helps us in Europe. I think there's definitely a different temperament to what's acceptable and what's no. And I'm not. So the last point is that
affects Celtic because they get refereed properly there too.
See, the thing with Celtic is I think that they benefit because you look at the foul tables and all that kind of stuff. I don't particularly read into that because, as we know, we've spoken about this, they kill games and therefore it's a different game once they're 4-0 up, whereas we are constantly unable to kill off games. But I just feel, and it's not, it's a leveller for other teams and that's fine. This isn't just so that we get away and we play silky football and don't get kicked. This is a big picture thing that SFA need to wake up to. No point in whatever it was, Project Brave and youth, grassroots youth football, if by the time they're 18 they're getting the shit kicked to them and the referees are letting it happen. It's past talking about, to be honest with you.
No Scottish referees at any major tournament now for years. That says it all. And unless they do wake up to this, then there's nothing that can be done. Rangers have put in an appeal. If there's any sense, it'll be given, but it's Scottish football, so there might just be another double down, but we'll have to wait and see, because it costs us a suspension of a player who yesterday I thought was the best player on the park. And you're absolutely right. In a way, I'm kind of glad Dundee United did that because it annoyed the hell out of them. And after a really slow half an hour from Rangers where we were sluggish, they wanted it more in that opening 30 minutes, and you saw that at the goal. More comedy defending, Andy, from Rangers, more stand and watch him. And this is an issue where nobody takes responsibility. You've got enough players in the box to deal with that, and it wasn't the first warning. Dalby's had a shot off the header off the post. Butland's made a couple of good saves. I do accept that we are playing with a youngster in there, but the rest of them are experienced defenders, and Rangers were a mess. Tightened up a bit in the second half, but still any crosses into the box were very dangerous. And we got away with it yesterday because we then powered on, but they did hit the woodwork 3 times, and that won't always happen. So there are a lot of positives to take out of yesterday, and we'll come to those, but defensively I did not think Rangers were good at all yesterday.
I thought it was going to be a test for Enciala. We've seen him and been quite impressed with his work on the ball. I thought this was going to be a big, different, and a kind of acid test to his career to this point. I thought he did all right. I think he's got a bit of the bassy in terms of he's not that good in the air, which could be a problem in games like this, but he did all right. The goal itself, if you watch it back, I thought, I'm not saying it was a foul, but you see an example I'm talking about. Diamande's mid-air and he gets knocked sideways because somebody jumps horizontally into him, right? But we don't clear our lines. Proper's rolling about the flare like a toddler, and it was just a bit of a mess. And then, as you say, hitting the woodwork another 3 times, although 2 of them were offside, I think. we definitely got away with one with Raskin's near own goal. We're just not very good in either box for set pieces. And I know statistics might tell us as bad as I'm making out here defensively.
No,
but
you're absolutely right. We didn't concede a goal from a set piece all season, and then we've conceded 5 since Christmas, and it's not hard to know the answer to why. It's John Souttar.
Yes, and I watched it yesterday, and I actually commented to the guy next to me. We had Raskin and who else was it? Some other smout marking 2 of their big players because we did this kind of zonal thing. And I'm not up to speed with the tactics and much for the fashion for defending corners, but I know their job is to then try and stop the movement, the run at the ball. But we've got a bad combination just now. We've got a goalkeeper that's a wee bit off the boil in terms of defending corners, to say the least, right?
Yeah, and he doesn't trust the
centre halves.
Yeah, he does proper, when Souttar's there. Yeah.
I know he played all right yesterday and he scored the goal. I watched proper and I'm like, that's a centre half that if we're playing him regularly, we're never going to win things. I know that sounds really, really cruel, but I just there's nothing about him there that's going to suggest to me that we can achieve with a player like that in such such an important position. So,
I think he's clearly a decent player. Again, I just don't think he's right for this league.
No.
So, Cammy, I mean, a really slow start. I think, the fans were, here we go again. It's the usual stuff. But Diamandi, cometh a half hour, cometh a man. And Diamandi with an absolutely brilliant goal. One of the things I did like about Rangers yesterday, we were shooting. And we were looking to get shots off because sometimes I think we can overplay in the final third. And yesterday we were looking to get shots off and we get a reward with a brilliant one from Mo Diamandi, but also, with the deflection, it's just taking the opportunities and maybe sometimes if it's on, try it.
Yeah, there was too many times where I think we lacked being able to do the brave thing and playing the ball forward and being able to get a shot away. It's a great strike by Diamandi. It's the right thing to do within that situation because Dundee United, rightly at that point, were trying to make it compact in their own box, probably 25 yards out. They wanted to make sure and suffocate any space, and you weren't going to get any joy with that, no matter how many times you wanted to play a sideways pass. Nothing was going to come of that. And, again, as we've mentioned, some of the treatment that Diamandi got within that first half hour could have stifled him, could have put him back in his box a little bit, but to his credit, he wanted to continue pressing and probing. It's a great strike. It's through a sea of bodies. The keeper obviously is unsighted for it, but even if he had been able to see it, I don't know if he can shift himself enough towards his right-hand side to stop it because it's going in right across to the right-hand post, and it is a great finish. It's something that, you're right, David, we do need to be able to see more of. It's not going to be pretty football, and nor should it be. It's our problem that we have to be able to break some of these midfield defences down because whether it's Ibrox or away, a point is good enough for these teams. That's something that they would take before the game kicks off. So we need to be able to be less risk averse, I think, in terms of being able to commit players going forward, which I think that we've seen probably more at Ibrox than we have away this season. Maybe that lends into our away form. But also being able to make those decisions at the right time. And beyond the 30 minutes of the game, I thought we started to look more comfortable doing that. But we come back to that element. I know we won yesterday, so we take the victory. But it's also probably been true of a lot of the games where we've dropped points away from home that we just haven't done that quickly enough. And before you know it, you've conceded a goal or you've conceded 30 to 45 minutes of the game to the other team and you've not been able to get anything at the back of it. But listen, a wonderful goal, and it moved Rangers' tempo up a lot. I think it just gave us that lift that we absolutely needed. And I think as soon as I saw that goal fly in, I only had one thought in my mind at that stage was, right, this will propel us now. It gives us a platform to build on, and thankfully we did so.
We've been critical in a lot of away games, Andy, but what I was impressed with yesterday was, first of all, playing 2 up front, because we are a far better side when we do that. And secondly, at the start of the second half, Rangers come out and seize control of the game, get a break with a goal, Robin proper, but as I say, it felt deserved at that point. And then attacking-wise, I thought Rangers were good in the second half. Maybe a slight frustration we didn't kill it a little earlier, but up to that point, I think that the third goal is absolutely splendid, and we'll come to that in a moment. But I just felt that Rangers went out far more on the front foot. And maybe it is a confidence thing, as Cammy says. The first half hour we were, I thought, quite timid, quite tepid in our play. And then there was the reaction. And then Rangers did begin to assert ourselves. And Dundee United are not a bad side. They're third and deservedly so in the league. They'll definitely finish top six, possibly even in Europe. They know what they're doing. It is about Rangers imposing ourselves in these matches.
Well, they had a go the second half. I mean, you're talking about the first half and how it was kind of tepid, and the centre halves and fullbacks were passing along the line, and we just weren't breaking them down, and they were really comfortable in their shape the first half. But the second half, we just went for them, and it does help. Obviously, you get the goal so early in the second half because I think mentally we play a wee bit more freely once we know we've got a cushion. And we should have killed it off. Dessers, when he nearly went round the goalkeeper, I thought that was... I was getting off my nut because at that point I was like, this kills the game. But there was numerous chances and we were causing them a lot of problems. I thought Hadji came onto a game... A word on Hadji, right, by the way. His work rate's incredible. I used to... I don't know. I used to think he lacked power and pace. And he still does to a degree, but he's made up for it. He lacks pace, but he's still going by players, Davey. And this is the thing, he's working really, really well within that system. Igaman's the key, right? I mean, it's hard not to get overexcited about him because when he gets the ball, I'm kind of electrified because he usually does something that has you going, wow, right? These nutmegs that he does, or you kind of know he's going to make the right decision with his pass. Now, it's not always executed, but he always has his head up and he's moving forward and his 1-2s around the box. And if you watch again yesterday in the second half, he'd be, 8-10 yards outside of the box and he'd play the wall pass with either Dessers or Bajrami or Hadji or whatever. And there was some real brilliant link-up play. He's the one that makes that happen. And this is why... Call me a dinosaur, right? But I don't believe in this 10, and I don't believe it for Rangers because it's never really worked. I'm quite happy, or I prefer to have a good all-round striker playing off another striker, and that's what we got yesterday. Maybe if we had something like that with Dessers, we wouldn't view him the same as we view him now in terms of a dud that can't hold the ball up, and we've made our mind up, I've made my mind up on him.
He can't hold the ball up.
I know he can't.
And therefore, that's why we've always said play two up front, because then you've got somebody who can, and both the other two can.
Offset each
other. Because basically when the ball goes up now to Tegaman, it sticks and there's someone for him to immediately turn around and look for, right? Whereas when it goes up to Dessers, it's random, it bounces off him a lot. And even if when he does control it, there's nobody there. It doesn't work. Unless you have a Morelos who can get the ball turned and then head off to goal on his own, then you need to have someone up there who can do that.
Absolutely. So I thought it really, really worked, and I would like to see us persevere with it, whether, it will depend on whether Dessers goes or not, but we've got a dilemma there because he's 30.
No, I don't think there is a dilemma. If people are going to pay $4 million for him, you take the money.
But we've got to replace the goals, is the thing, and it's easier said than done.
No, you replace him, absolutely, but you take the money and you let him go. I don't think it is a big debate because of his age. His values are going to go down. Right now, he's in a pretty decent place. The interest in him are from leagues where they can afford to spend the money and take the wages. So, no, I think you make that change. But he's certainly playing well at the moment. He's putting the ball in the net regularly, and the finish yesterday was just the goal itself was top drawer yesterday. Cammy, first of all, nice play by Bajrami, who I thought was really poor for 75 minutes. I've watched it back and I still don't think he was particularly great. I don't think his work rate was anywhere near it, but he did actually play well in the last quarter of an hour. A lovely assist from young Zach Lovelace as well. Perfectly weighted pass. Sybil's still got a bit to do, but what a finish.
Yeah, it is, Jen. It's interesting because you see the best and worst of Cyril Dessers within that phase of play, because Bajrami, and you're right, David, I don't think he applies himself enough. I think sometimes he doesn't realise how hard he has to work if he wants to be able to get anything out of these games. And what I mean by that is, closing down players, being able to shut down any space that a player has. He has to be able to do some of that. He can't have the luxury of just saying, right, well, I'll play slightly more of a more available role so that if I get the ball, I know exactly where I'm going to go with. He needs to be able to do the hard yards as well. He could have played the ball through the channel to Dessers, and if he had done, Dessers was already offside at that point, which was kind of frustrating, but he makes the right choice by putting out wider to Zach Lovelace. I think he could have been maybe Lovelace's first touch of the ball at this stage. And yeah, as you say, he puts it into a really good area for Dessers. It's funny because during the game yesterday, when I saw it in real time, I thought he's maybe just slightly overhit that and he's made the angle a little bit too tough. But then you see the best of Cyril Dessers because he finishes it from a really, really good angle and absolutely puts the ice on top of the cake. What's that? 6 goals in 4 games now. Not all starts, it has to be said to his credit as well. But yeah, really, really pleased with that. And I think that it was, don't get wrong, it's very much a excellent to get the third goal and be able to get a 2-goal lead because Dundee United had been chapping in the door, as I mentioned earlier on, but that took the wind out of their sails altogether. I will give Bajrami credit because I think that had we had more availability on the bench, and I don't think he would have lasted as long as he did. Same thing as well with Hadji, by the way. Hadji at this point was pretty much dead on his feet. But we continue to chap the door, and that's the most important thing, I think, for Cyril Dessers is to continue getting into these spaces. He was unlucky earlier on in the game where he had a really good turning shot in the first half, which was a good save from the keeper. And listen, if it gets them into that window and it generates interest and people see the variety of some of these goals, because, you know, against Dundee United, it's really a first-time hit into a tight area. Against Aberdeen, he's running the entire half and he's slotting away coolly. Then Grand, I agree with you, David. I think he has to go in this window. And Andy's right as well. The goals have to be replaced. But there's definitely an option out there where we can get someone who, if he falls into a 2-striker system, then I think we could get someone coming in that can help us out more in that area.
So a good win, a good solid win, particularly after a European game away from home. I don't think anyone will get carried away because we've seen this before, and I don't think anyone's saying everything is fixed now. The away form is sorted. We'll need more evidence of that, but hopefully as we get players back, we'll begin to have a wee bit more in terms of options. Andy, Kieran Dowell has left the club. He's gone to Birmingham City on loan, and there are noises that Tom Lawrence will leave before the end of the window as well, that there are a lot of English Championship clubs interested in him. This is making up for mistakes of the past. This is Rangers trying to get ourselves back an even keel when it comes to players. And for me, I think that, you know, Rabbi Matonda's another one who looks as though he'll be going as well. Big earners going off the wage bill. Big earners who weren't always big contributors, I think it's fair to say. And we've seen in the last few weeks when youngsters have had to be played that in terms of our spend, we need to spend it better because we've had a lot of money the last few years either sitting in the stand or when fit sitting on the bench because they've not been good enough. And to me, Kieran Dowell, I think, has been emblematic of that failed transfer policy, which is if you're going to buy from the English market and pay inflated wages because that is an inflated wages market, then okay, I get it if the guy's going to be an important part of your team. But when you're bringing someone in who at best has been brought in as a squad player that you hope will challenge on that kind of wage, I fail to see why someone like that is better than giving some of your young players a chance. And what it does is it actually blocks that. So although it means we're losing players at the moment, it's all, I think, with an aim of starting to build up come the summer. We've seen it with the transfer deals this year where we've gone for younger players to try and get things moving. And I must say that it's a shame we're still having to do this, but at least we seem to be heading in the right direction of clearing Deadwood out of the squad.
I mean, given the state of the season so far and the fact the league's gone, this window for me was all about who we get out rather than who we get in. I know that sounds kind of pessimistic, but it's with a view to the summer. If you get the wages under control, not under control, you know what I mean? If you free up some wages, then you can start to talk and negotiate for players for the summer with a knowledge that you've got a wage bill available. Dowell, listen, we spoke about him umpteen times. He just never, even when he was fit, just never looked athletic enough to be playing football, far less football for Rangers in this league. Tom Lawrence, I think we were very unlucky with a bad injury go a couple of seasons ago because he looked like a real, I was going to say bargain there, but as a Bosman, you know, that that was a good move at that time. But the injuries have just caught up with him, and the pace is just completely
there was talent
disappeared there.
Yeah,
he
you could see that, but his legs, his pace is gone.
He could have been a senior player for us if he'd stayed
Yeah.
fit, right? And so I wouldn't totally disregard signings like that, because I think we were unlucky with him. But Matondo, he needs to go ASAP, and I know there's talk here why he's not leaving, which, listen, that's a contract, that's his right, it's his living, so I don't actually have too much of a gripe for that, but football-wise, he needs to go.
To be fair, it wasn't him that the Coventry move broke down, it was the terms.
Was it?
And Rangers couldn't get ideal terms, and the reason for that is Rangers can do that because there is other interest in him.
Right.
So he will go this window. It hasn't been him.
Good, thanks, David. That's cheered me up. So these guys need to go, because our peripheral players, if you like, the core of them should be made up of our youth, as you say, and give them a chance and let them bleed in. Ultimately, need to be good enough to play in the first team, right? Ross McCausland is a good, talking point, because he's came in impressed. I really, really liked him. His forms fell away quite badly. I still have hope that he comes back, and I think we've got to accept it. And I know we say, he's not a young player, but he is a young player for Rangers. There's a difference. I've still got hopes that he can be a squad player for us, and a good contributing squad player. The likes of Curtis, Lovelace, Bailey Rice. Lovelace and Curtis are out of contract, aren't they? The end of this season, am I right in saying that?
Yeah.
You get Duff information in the flagship, but things like that, they've got to. They're at a crossroads where they say, "Well, do I stay here and be a peripheral, squad player? Do I go away and get first team football?" But we should be having players coming through or getting loaned out and coming back. But we don't use the loan system anywhere near enough, so that we've got a core of young Scottish or young Rangers bred players. The next window's a biggie. I think Fernandes, I know nothing about him. He's came in. That's the kind of profile. It's the same as Cortez. Big reputation, signed early by another European team. Doesn't quite happen, and then we take them on, and there's hopefully something there. Again, we'll see how he copes with Scottish football. This is the thing, centre half, Portuguese centre half for France. But we just need to keep building forward, and I'm quietly optimistic, given that Coppin's record today. We look for all hits all the time when we sign players, and that's just not possible. Igaman is a major, major plus in his tick box for Coppin, and Yefte is the same. He's came in for not very much, and absolute buttons by modern standards.
Oh, yeah,
and he's showing signs that there's a lot to be worked on there, and I mean that in a good way. His pace is unbelievable. His recovery, he'll get better at the defending, the likes of it we saw at Old Trafford. So I'm quietly confident that we've got a recruitment that might cut the mustard, hopefully.
Yeah, it's a long-term thing.
Yeah.
Because it had been a long-term thing to let it grind down to absolute nothingness, where we had a squad full of players on big money who weren't sellable, who weren't assets. And we're having to start from scratch, which is bring in younger players who have potential, who have selling value, and get rid of the high earners. But we still need to bring in players as well who can contribute immediately. And even if it is loans initially right now while we're getting everything moving. Czerny, for example, I think is a really good example of someone who's come in and certainly been a signing that you can absolutely justify. Cammy, we now get ready for European action. We take on Union Saint-Gilloise on Thursday night at Ibrox in a bit of a strange game because it's not a do-or-die match. It's a case of Rangers are more than likely, in fact, barring a statistical catastrophe, are going to go through at least to the playoffs. And obviously then we'll have at least 2 more games in Europe. However, our chances of making the top 8 automatically are slim. Not impossible, but slim. However, though, 1, you want to win every game. 2, you want to finish as high up as you can because theoretically it'll get you an easier draw. And thirdly, as well as the money for winning the game, you get more money for finishing higher up. So it's still a very important match.
No, for sure. Obviously USG come to us with aims of their own, which is fine because I think Thursday nights at Ibrox, we've beaten far better teams than them in the past, and most important thing, as you say, Davey, is how high up we can finish. It'll be disappointing for us. And it's that paradox, isn't it, about how we talk about how poor we've been domestically, but within Europe, we've achieved some great things. Not to finish within, that top 8 ranking, but I personally, I think it's too. There's too many factors in it to be able to try and see us from there. So if we could get up to 9th or 10th and then be just outside it, I would take that happily. Europe's very much been a balm, I think, in terms of being able to soothe us over how poorly we have done domestically. And, we have applied ourselves. I mentioned, application earlier on when talking about Bajrami, but, in Europe, we certainly have been able to compete. We haven't had the fear. We have had, far more space than we're used to. We've been able to go and just, put a lot of, variables to one side in terms of who was available for selection. We've been a little bit hamstrung with the fact that players who were not fit when we submitted our initial European squads are now very much within selection contention. So that'll be interesting to see how some of that changes when we get into the kind of latter stages in the squad that we submit into that. It's going to be a big one. I think it will be a great atmosphere. I think that it'll be great to be able to see that we can get into those latter stages. We've got no idea, obviously, of who we could face, depending on where this, mental fixture schedule comes to. Because obviously, all the Champions League games, like all 18 fixtures or whatever it is, same as ourselves in the Europa League, they're all played simultaneously, which is just wild. If you're an armchair fan, I think your remote might need new batteries. But for us, all we can do is just go out and play as well as we know that we can do. Make a really great account of ourselves, and then I think we're just going to have to see as to where the chips fall thereafter.
Andy, the thing about USG is they are a good side. Now, Cammy's right. We have beaten better sides than them this season in Europe. However, if you approach this with any sort of complacency and we'll be fine. We've beaten Nice, we've beaten FCSB, we've beaten Malmo, then you'll be in bother. You need to be right on it from the start against them.
Well, mind you, we're still missing a lot of key players. But Europe has been a fill-up for us, as Cammy's saying. It would be good to go in and keep the momentum going in terms of our own, how we look at ourselves. Europe has given us a wee bit of pride where all else has been lost, to be quite honest with you, hasn't it? And the Nice game was definitely a springboard for some good stuff. So, I would like to get in with the attitude that we need to win the game. And I know that miracles might not happen in terms of that top 8 qualification, but we've still got to go for it. And I think the team is, as we've spoken about this before, the team is set up for European football. And as opposed to what we watched yesterday at Tandy's trying to break down teams. So I quite enjoy watching us in Europe even. And I've been really, really heartened with the two biggies, which were Man United at Tottenham. There's Man United, Tottenham and Lyon. They were announced this morning in the top 20 richest clubs in Europe. They were 3 teams that, all things being equal, should have scudded us. And
but one of them did, to be fair. But
well, they did, you're right. Well, could have been different if it scored the first minute, I'd like to think, but we've acquitted ourselves decent. And I know that, people were shouting, standards, Andy, and that this is the new reality. We're old enough to remember teams that we spent absolute millions on relative to other leagues, and we still got our arse handed to us in Europe. So I think we've got to recognise that we're going through a wee bit of a decent period in terms of European capability and reputation, and I hope it continues on Thursday.
No, I mean, I don't think it's arguable. I mean, you and I have been fans since the 80s, and this last 6 years has been the best Rangers performance consistently, and I don't think it's up for debate, to be honest. We had the odd good year, but generally speaking, you're absolutely right, and I think that the team has. So I do hope they go into this match with the right attitude, and might not be able to make it through at the top 8, but let's get as high up as we can and hopefully get a better draw, and then look forward to that and welcome whoever's coming, because nobody will be desperate to get us in the draw. There are easier draws than us, and I think that's something we need to bear in mind. Right then, folks, that will do us for this week here on Heart and Hand. We will be back next week, of course, but our second free show of the week will be out on Friday. Cammy will host Heart and Hand Extra, where he'll go over that USG game and look ahead to taking on Ross County at Ibrox on Sunday. If I can just point you in the direction of our Patreon site, it's patreon.com/Heart and Hand, where you will get so much bang for your buck over there. Up to 5 shows every single day, cover all things Rangers from the current day, history, you name it, as well as other things. It's well worth just $1.99 per month, so go along and get signed up to that. My thanks to our producers, Mike Lee and Paul Miles, and my thanks to my two guests. First of all, to Cammy Bell.
Thank you, buddy. A pleasure to talk to you both.
And to Andy McGowan.
Thanks for having me on. Just want to point out, Cammy doesn't get enough abuse for being a referee, so feel free.
Yeah, listen, I'll take the compliment. I was a fan in the 80s as well, but sitting next to you two, I feel dead young. So thanks.
You weren't born in it.
Were you blind?
What year were you born?
1980. Yeah, carry on.
Maybe a push.
Wow, he's so much younger than us, Davey.
You seem to have left your mathematical brain down in Manchester. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's way younger now. He's just trying to claim some of the 80s glory. I think we both know that. Right then, folks, thanks for listening. We'll be back next week. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Please check out our sponsors NordVPN for the best in online security. It's the best VPN on the market, and you can try it risk-free now with a 30-day money-back guarantee by visiting nordvpn.com/heart and hand. That's nordvpn.com/heart and hand, and it's risk-free with a 30-day money-back guarantee.